Yo everybody, welcome back to another video. Thanks for stopping by and tuning into another one. You're freaking amazing. So guys, we have a very special video planned for you today. What we're going to be doing is hopping into an interview with one of the best pro players in the Brawl Stars community, the one and only Bobby. Now Bobby managed to get 923 trophies on the newest brawler in the game, Gene. Now this is a feat in and of itself, knowing that Gene was released into the game very underwhelming. So he defied the odds and managed to get him to the #1 Gene in the entire world last season. So Bobby's going to be giving us all the insight that we need to know in order to push Gene successfully in the meta that we're currently in. Now, Bobby does have his own YouTube channel. He's sitting at a little bit over 2,000 subscribers, and he makes stellar pro-level gameplay content full of tips, strategy, and guides that you guys will benefit from immensely. So make sure to drop him a sub down below. Make sure you tell him that Ray sent you. I'd truly appreciate that. His link will be in the description down below. So guys, without any further ado, let's get into this interview. Here we go. So, Bobby, it is fantastic to have you finally on the channel. We've been meaning to do this for a very long time. How you doing, dude?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on the channel. I'm super excited.
Yeah, no sweat, no sweat. So I've heard you've been grinding Gene pretty dang hard as of recently.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's definitely been a grind, but I've actually had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, that's good. It was last season you hit 911 trophies, correct?
I actually got a bit higher. Originally I was going to try and push it to 1,000 trophies. But the maps just really weren't allowing it. So I got it to about 923 and then tilted it back down.
That's insane. So, first things first, I just want to ask you, what are your first thoughts or impressions of Gene? Like, as soon as he came out, how'd you like him?
So, when he came out, I think about a month after Leon. And when he came out, I was like, well, this brawler sucks. Because just in comparison to Leon, Leon was so strong. And then Gene came out, and he just felt so weak compared to Leon. And I think that was kind of what the general public thought about Gene, to be honest.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But over time, I think people got used to Gene. And definitely the more I played Gene, the better I got at him.
So what do you think about him in the meta as of right now? Do you think he's like good? Is he balanced? Is he underwhelming after his balance change?
I think currently he's actually perfect. He's exactly what I think a brawler should be. So he's strong on some maps, weak in others. He's got a couple good modes and a couple bad modes, and he's good at what he does. And I think every brawler should be, to be honest, should be like that.
Okay, yeah, exactly. That's kind of how I feel now too. He's just a little bit more balanced. We'll have some interesting insight from Bobby a little bit later, where he was saying that he likes certain things from the last Gene, which is interesting, which we'll get into. But right now, what would you say his strengths and weaknesses are in the meta?
So definitely his strength right now is being extremely annoying, kind of like a crow, where you can kind of just continuously chip the other brawler and not let them regen. And it's super frustrating facing him when you're so many tiles away and he just hits you for like 200 damage just so you don't regen. So that's definitely a strength. Also, you can win a game with one pull, kind of like a Terra. So that's definitely a strength. But there's definitely a weakness where his damage per second isn't very high and he doesn't pierce. So if he's facing a tank, it's definitely very hard for him to get a kill. It's
a no-go against the tanks. Don't you dare pull that sucker in. How about best game modes? What would you say out of all the game modes that we have in the game right now?
I think currently the best 3 game modes I'd say are Gem Grab, Brawl Ball, and then Showdown in that order. He could be used as a lane and mid, which I think he's the only brawler you can do that with currently in Gem Grab.
That's interesting.
He's good in Brawl Ball, especially now since he can break the walls. And the pulling ability is just so good. There can be like a 2-on-1 and you're trying to score, and you can just pull somebody away. And it just helps. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. So then how about for beginners? Like when you first initially got your Gene, what was the game mode that you went to like right away to get as many trophies as possible to kind of like race the meta, you know, try to get to the top?
Well, originally I played Showdown just because it was the fastest thing to gain on. But then once I reached about 200, 300 trophies, I said, okay, I need a team for this because he's not the strongest brawler. So then I moved to Showdown, to Gem Grab and started playing a lot of Gem Grab with him.
So how about, what would you avoid? Like what modes would you try to avoid with Gene? What's like the worst one?
I would definitely avoid Heist just because there are always tanks in Heist and you're always going to be facing tanks. Another weakness for Gene is throwers, and again, you see that a lot in Heist. And I would also avoid Bounty just because there's a lot of long-range brawlers such as like Piper.
Sure. How about the on Gem Grab, for example, the best game mode that you said? What would you say is like the staple team comp you've seen, or like what roles go good with Gene?
Well, personally, I run Gene in two different ways. So if I'm running him as a lane, my goal is kind of to go after their weaker lanes. So I want to have another lane with me, kind of like a spike or a tank to take out their heavier opponent, take out the opponent with more HP, and then just any mid is fine. Like a Poco is really good with him. I find a Jesse, a Pam. But if I'm running him mid, then I just want two solid lanes, like a Nita and a Spike beside me.
Okay, gotcha. Interesting. I've never played Gene as a mid. I've always played him as a support, so that is news to me. Play him as a mid, guys. He fits there. How about let's move on to some of his like stats. For his attack, what are your tips to use his attack effectively? Like, what would you do to gain some ground, say, if you're playing a gem carrier?
So basically what I would want to do is I'd try and hit his full shot. So at a max, I don't know his stats for everything else, but max it's 1400. So I tried to hit his full shot a couple times, and then from there you can play really defensively and just kind of chip and not let them regen, since they're going to be around like half health. So that's that. They won't be able to push up against you, and you can just stay defensive and chip away from a distance.
How about, here's something for you. Would you ever play Gene with Rams? Do you think he's like one of those focal point brawlers that can stand alone, where sometimes you can run like maybe like a Mortis or like a Bull, where they're kind of like playmakers? Would you ever run Gene in randoms?
To be honest, for myself, I don't think I would. But just like you said, there are a couple brawlers that are playmakers, like a Bull, a Primo, a Tara, a Mortis, and I think Gene actually fits that category with his super. So I think you could actually go in and actually have some decent success if you're carrying and trying to make that big play, but I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't risk the trophies.
Speaking to a pro player, try to avoid random sometimes. It's not always the best thing. How about super? What are your tips for a super? I know when Gene first was introduced to the game, it was incredibly hard for me to get it down. And whenever I would miss my super, it was just so like heartbreaking to see that super go away. Like as you're constantly trying to charge up your super and then you miss. What are your tips for super?
So just like you, I was the same. I was missing a lot of supers at the start, but then I started realizing that I can take my time with it. Before I was kind of rushing my super. But you can take your time and make sure you're not rushing it, just because it's such a focal point of Gene's mechanic is to hit his super. So just kind of taking your time with it is very important. It's also very, very important to make sure you have three shots charged when you have your pull. Because you don't want to pull someone towards you and then have no ammo when he's right in your face.
Interesting, yeah. That's stuff I feel like people don't normally think about. You need to capitalize once you actually do hook them. So next, star power. What do you think about Gene's star power? Do you think it's good? When I felt like when Gene first was introduced into the game, I thought it was almost like a hindrance. I didn't even want my Gene maxed out. But now, what do you think about it? The 200 HP per second. What do you think?
To be honest, I think it's the worst in the game for two different reasons. Now,
interesting.
The reason I think it's the worst in the game for two different reasons. One is I feel like it's useless. It doesn't even heal yourself, which I find is super weird. It's the only star power that really doesn't help yourself. And I think it's very unlike personalized. I think it's just they just gave him a random star power, and it has nothing really to do with him, to be honest.
Then I have a follow-up question. What would you do to change it? Like, what do you think would fit Gene well for like a star power?
An idea I had is, you know when you have a max Tara and you throw your super and it gives you that little like Tara baby? If you pull someone towards you and then once they're right in front of your face, you also get like a little Gene baby kind of thing. So then you can start to pull tanks kind of, and you won't just get auto aim straight in the face by them.
Yeah, okay. Just like to complement the super. How would you counter Gene? What are your best tips? Like if you ever went up against a Gene, how would your team kind of go against him?
If I ever went up against a Gene, the first thing I do is try and get the most HP brawler on top of Gene, because Gene struggles against him because again, no piercing damage, the super doesn't do any damage. And you only have those 3 shots. So you can kind of just walk forward as a tank and just start, if you're a Primo, just walk forward and start punching Gene. But
just get in their face.
I just wouldn't put someone very weak on him, like a Spike or something. I feel like it's so easy to kill a Spike as a Gene.
What brawlers do you think Gene is super good against? So we know Gene is really bad against the higher health brawlers, basically. And like the tankier, high DPS shotgun brawlers. What brawlers do you find Gene is like super successful at going for?
I find him super successful against people like Spike and Ricochet, Brock, because those are people who have to hit you 4 or 5 times when you have to hit him only 3 times. And you don't even have to hit him. You can kind of just stay back and chip away. And since they're such low HP, they'll actually be hurt a lot. So I think those are brawlers you should definitely be going for with Gene.
Then that kind of brings me to like kind of the final thoughts. First things first, I want you to dive into what you think of the Gene when you pushed him to 923 trophies compared to the Gene now in the meta. Like, what are the differences? Which one do you like better? You know what I mean?
So being a quote-unquote pro player, I really enjoyed Gene because I think he has a really high skill cap. And I think he's one of the hardest brawlers in the game to learn. And I think the old Gene was definitely a lot harder to push than the new Gene. But what I did like about the old Gene is that his super did damage. Now, don't quote me on this. I don't know the exact number, but I think there's about 5 to 6 brawlers with 4,400 damage HP. And those brawlers, you used to be able to pull them towards you and 3-shot them with Gene because the super would be able to do damage. Now you can't. Now you can't do that anymore because the pull doesn't have any damage to it. So I actually really don't like that they took that out. Because that's basically what I was doing. I would just suck those brawlers in. I'd hit them 3 times and just cycle it every time they came back to life.
Yeah, so now you're stuck with those types of brawlers. You pull them in, and then they're just left with a sliver.
Exactly.
And then for the final kind of thought, like I said before, if you wanted to change something about Gene right now in the meta, to either make him a little bit overpowered or like even if you do love him exactly where he's at, what would you want most to change about Gene?
Well, the number one thing I'd want to change with Gene is his star power, just because I really don't like how it doesn't match himself. But to be honest, I think that's it. I think just a little bit of a star power rework, and that would be it. I really like Gene. I think he's one of the few high skill cap brawlers that we have in the game. And I think it's great to have a brawler that's actually hard to push and hard to learn.
Yeah, it makes it exciting. So, one more question. You getting Gene to 1,000 this season?
I don't know about that one. Well, 1,000's a lot of work.
But dude, Bobby, it was a pleasure having you on my channel. Like I said before, we've been trying to get this put together for a very long time. Thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's really an honor to be on the channel. I was one of the OG subs. I was one of the first ones. I think I was one of the first 1,000 actually.
That means a lot, Bobby. So guys, that's going to be the end of the video. Hope you guys all enjoyed it and found it useful. Once again, Bobby, thank you for coming on the channel. And make sure to let me know in the comments down below if you guys enjoy this type of video where we can kind of get into the mind of a pro player, someone who excels at a certain brawler, getting them to the #1 rank in the entire world, and just find out what goes through their head while they're playing these brawlers in game, how to play these brawlers in the best way possible. If that is interesting to you, I would love to continue doing these type of videos. They're very, very fun for me. So make sure to let me know in the comments down below. That would be awesome. So if you did enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like on it. Also consider hitting that subscribe button down below and being a part of the Ray fam. I would also really appreciate that. So guys, with that being said, make sure to keep having fun with Brawl Stars, and we will see you in the next video. Peace out, guys.